In this Moving to Mexico video, we're going to be talking about some of the places where expats like to live. This has been a highly requested video, and we've got you covered because Mexico has something for everyone.
So if you like our channel, if you've been following us for a while, make sure that you hit the like button on this video and subscribe to our channel here on YouTube or wherever you're seeing this. It really helps us out a lot with all the interweb algorithms and all that other fancy stuff. So we very much appreciate it. And if you're interested in moving to Mexico, we've actually put a special guide together just for you. You're going to see the link right below this video. It's our Moving to Mexico guide where we talk about all the details, everything you need to know to move to Mexico. High level, it'll get you started. And we also have a guide on the different automations that we put together in our main business. We actually also help 6 and 7 figure businesses with their marketing, with their strategy, with their offers, with their sales. And we put a list together of the top automations that we use in our business and in our clients' businesses to really get things going behind the scenes so that you actually have the time, you have the freedom, you have the energy to go and travel and explore the world, because it's not just about working your ass off 80-hour weeks behind some corporate job or in your own business. It's about having leverage, and leverage is key when you want to both grow your business online and become an entrepreneur expat like we are.
So let's get into this list. Like I mentioned, it's in no way exhaustive. So if you want us to cover any other hotspots that you did not hear, leave it in the comments below, but let's get started. So number one for us, obviously, is Guadalajara. It's where we chose to live. We actually did a whole video on the top 10 reasons why we chose to live in Guadalajara. So we will make sure to link that so you can watch it in case you have not yet. But long story short, unlike some of the other places that we're mentioning in this video, Guadalajara actually feels like you are in another country. And for us, if we're going to be living in another country, we want to feel like we are in another country and we want to integrate. And that was something that was very important to us. So some places in Guadalajara, like El Centro, feel very European. Other places like Tlaquepaque feel very Mexican. It's a very cool mix, and it doesn't feel like an area that was built for Americans like some of the other places on this list. Granted, to be fair, we both speak Spanish fluently, so it's easier for us to integrate. We know you guys have asked us for videos about how to learn Spanish. It's incoming. Make sure to subscribe.
So Guadalajara, like Amanda said, we chose that because it's a much more, I guess, local vibe than a lot of the other places that we've been to, and we like being in a city. There's definitely pros and cons of being in a beach town versus a city, and I personally love the beach a lot, but I don't necessarily like to live there, especially some of the more crowded beach towns here in Mexico. One of those places that a lot of expats do like that's on the beach, though, is Puerto Vallarta, and Puerto Vallarta is just a few hours drive from us here in Guadalajara, so we've taken some trips there, and it's nice, it's relaxing. There's other places close by to there, like Sayolita, San Pancho, Bucerias, and other little towns like that are maybe more off the beaten path than Vallarta. Vallarta is already a pretty well-developed city. But there's a lot of Canadians for sure that go to Puerto Vallarta. Both Canadians and Americans are there, definitely. There's a lot to do. Obviously, you have the beach. You have a lot of shopping malls. Since it is a big city, it's not a little town. There's malls, there's things to do. You can go to the movies. It's still it's on the beach, but it's still a big city versus other smaller towns that don't quite have those different hotspots and the infrastructure and all the things that a city would. So if you don't mind the heat, or maybe if you're a snowbird and you want to go during the winter when it's nice there and maybe freezing cold when you're from, then Vallarta may be a good option. And definitely check out those little towns surrounding Vallarta, because you'll find that maybe you're 30 or 40 minutes outside of a big city, but you actually like the vibe a lot better in some of the smaller beach towns. The pros and cons, of course. Cons are it's definitely hot, especially in the summer. The summer, I wouldn't say it's unbearable. It's not as humid as it is in places like Cancun or Playa del Carmen, but it definitely is hot. And you do have a lot of tourists. You do have a lot of transient people.
Yeah, not just American tourists either. Also a lot of Mexican tourists go to Puerto Vallarta. We just had a Holy Week here in Mexico. And in Mexico, they take Holy Week off. And they go party in Vallarta. At least the ones in Guadalajara go party in Vallarta. So, despite all that, and I've heard that Vallarta, not even I've heard, I know, based on what people have told me and what I've seen, Puerto Vallarta is more family friendly than, for example, Playa del Carmen, where things can get a little wild. But
Yeah, it's more of a party town.
we will get to Playa del Carmen momentarily. Also, I have been tagged in Facebook posts of people interested in moving to Mexico who are LGBTQ. And they're like, okay, well, where in Mexico is LGBTQ friendly? Puerto Vallarta is LGBTQ friendly. There's even like a whole section.
Oh, a whole area.
Yeah, there's a
zona,
whole area.
Zona romántica.
Zona Romantica is
Yes.
what it's called. So for those of you who've been asking
Or you will
about
see
that,
lots of guys in Speedos, or less, if that's your thing.
So those of you who've been
Yeah.
asking about LGBTQ friendly places in Mexico, you might want to look at Puerto Vallarta.
Yeah, and you mentioned Playa del Carmen. Playa del Carmen is another beach town exactly on the opposite side of Mexico. So that's about, I want to say like a 4 or 5 hour flight from here roughly to get to Cancun. And then from Cancun airport, you can take either a taxi or a bus. It's not that far. It's less than an hour, typically, depending on traffic, maybe an hour and a half from the airport there. And Playa del Carmen, what I thought Playa del Carmen would be when I went to visit was kind of just like an up and coming kind of hippie beach town type of thing. It was like that probably 10 years ago, maybe 15. Now it's also a fairly good sized city. I would say that the beaches are probably, and again, it depends what kind of beaches you like. Playa del Carmen, definitely more swimmable beaches versus Vallarta. If you like to party, Playa del Carmen is definitely a big party town, maybe even more so than Vallarta. I think Vallarta attracts a little bit more of an older, retired crowd versus Playa del Carmen tends to be on the younger side, more party life and nightlife and those sorts of things. You can find both in both cities, but Playa del Carmen definitely is a city now, and it's a very quickly growing city, so they do have some issues with like pollution and infrastructure and things like that because they've outgrown themselves very, very quickly. But definitely beautiful beaches. The other thing that I love about Playa del Carmen, I'm an avid diver, so I've gone diving all around the world, and amazing, amazing diving. Not necessarily in Playa del Carmen specifically, although you can dive there, but in the surrounding areas. So it's pretty close to Isla Mujeres, which I think we're going to be going to very soon, and we'll kind of take you along the journey a little bit. But Isla Mujeres is beautiful, and there's some amazing, amazing diving there as well. A lot of water sports, water activities, that type of thing. Probably more so on those East Coast beaches, like those Caribbean beaches like Playa del Carmen, than maybe you'd find on the West Coast, just because of how calm the waters are and everything.
Yeah, I've actually seen like pictures from friends of ours that live in Playa del Carmen, and they're like walking around and they show like what the signs look like at the bars, and I'm like, wait, are you in Mexico or are you in Miami? Very similar vibe.
Yeah, that's the con is you're gonna find it to be very well. The prices are also very high in both places. I would say more so in Playa because it's a little bit smaller than Vallarta, but it's kind of American priced and American styled, and it's all Americans there basically.
Yeah, it's a lot of Americans.
Americans and Canadians, and there's Europeans, but it's
Europeans
like
too.
dominated by tourists.
Yeah.
So it depends what your vibe is. That was our kind of challenge with the beach towns here and even the beach cities is there were so many tourists and everything was kind of catered towards Americans. And I'm like, we kind of had a conversation about this. I'm like, I really love the beach. And Amanda's like, yeah, I grew up in Miami and I've been around the beach all my life and whatever. And it's like, I love the beach, but at the same time, I just don't want to be in Mexico, but be hanging out with a bunch of Americans all the time. And usually, if I'm being completely honest, between you and me, like it's not Americans at their best that
Yeah.
you'll see in those places. So
Yes.
something to note.
Yeah, we'll have to do another video on what not to do as an American in Mexico. That would probably be a good one.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. All right, next one is kind of a 2-for-1. So it's Chapala and Ajijic. This is about, what, an hour outside of Guadalajara?
1 to 2 hours.
1 to 2 hours outside of Guadalajara. I mean, it's so nearby that we literally picked a friend up from the airport in Guadalajara, and we were like, well, we're already halfway to Chapala. Let's just go. So we made like a day trip out of it. But Lake Chapala is the largest lake in Mexico. It's huge. You actually see it flying into Guadalajara. It's massive. And it has several towns around the lake itself. And two of those towns are Chapala and Ajijic. And expats have been buying up huge houses in both areas like crazy. There's actually a lot of YouTube channels of real estate agents for Ajijic and Chapala if you want to check out what some of these houses look like. We were in Chapala a few weeks ago, and it was very beautiful. So it's not a big city like Guadalajara or Mexico City or the Vallarta or the Playa del Carmen. It's definitely way more chill than the beach towns if you're into that. Some people might think it's a little slow, like this one. He thinks it's a little slow. But it's definitely very beautiful, far more relaxing, and it definitely feels obviously a lot more Mexican than perhaps some parts of Guadalajara or the beach cities.
Yeah. And what would you say, and just in your opinion, in terms of kind of the vibe and the pace and your experience are between, let's say, somewhere like Guadalajara, where we are now, and somewhere like Chapala?
Chapala is a lot. Well, I think Guadalajara is relaxed, but I think Guadalajara is relaxed
Compared to
because
Miami.
I'm from Miami.
That's not really saying much.
It's not really saying a whole lot, right? Miami's like go 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 go. Like I'm a U.S. big city, born and raised kind of girl, so I think Guadalajara is slow in comparison
Yeah.
to Miami, and I was ready for that slower pace of life. But Ajijic and Chapala were even slower. So, if you want to relax, if you want to chill, it's more for that type of vibe. If you don't want to be bothered, it's probably a really good place to be. Although no one really bothers you in Mexico, everybody just kind of leaves you alone. So
Yeah, and then we have a couple more left on the list. So Mexico City is somewhere where we haven't actually visited yet. So we have limited experience just from secondhand accounts and things like that. We've flown through it several times. We haven't had the chance to actually go and explore it yet. But Mexico City is kind of like Mexico's version of New York, from what we hear. Very metropolitan, a lot of stuff to do, a lot of different people, great food, a lot of different cultures. That's your vibe if you want like the New York, but of Latin America, essentially. I don't know what else you'd like to say about that or things that you've heard about Mexico City, but there's so many neighborhoods. La Condesa is one that is very popular with expats. I'm sure we're gonna get a lot of flack. Just the comments will pour in from haters. We love it because they boost our engagement. That's really that's really all they do. Oh, you guys are just taking over this neighborhood or this neighborhood, whatever. It's like, well, I mean, in some cases that happens, and in some cases it's exactly the other way around. Like people move around, and that's what happens.
people have been moving around since literally the beginning.
Yeah, and I'll say that maybe that is one con of Mexico City is you're going to find a lot of other Americans and Canadians and Europeans there. So if you're trying to find areas that are more local, you can do it in Mexico City, but you want to look a little bit outside of the beaten path. Don't just go where there's just all these hot spots of other Westerners.
Yeah, like
unless you really
Polanco
like
and
that vibe. So it's important to get on the ground. That's why we're going to explore Mexico City as well, probably next year, and we'll give you guys the inside scoop when we do that.
Yeah, if we were to go to Mexico City, it's the same strategy that we used in Guadalajara, which is like, I know this is going to sound weird because this is a video about expats and where they like to hang out. We actually don't really like to hang out where the expats are. We don't like to live there. Not because, again, we both speak Spanish, so it's easier for us to integrate. Most of our friends here are actually Mexican. We haven't even really hung out with that many expats. But the reason for that is because, and this is something to note, in the expat areas, the prices have gone significantly up, right? So that's something to be aware of. So if you're outside of the beaten path a little bit, then you're going to find better prices. Other things to keep in mind about Mexico City that a lot of people don't know until they get there is the whole circulación thing.
Yeah, so if you do plan on getting a car, first of all, probably don't. It's not worth it in most cases to have a car, especially in somewhere like Mexico City, because you're going to drive yourself crazy trying to drive and navigate traffic and freeways and all these different, like all the roads there, and it's chaos. Like I get stressed out as is just driving in Guadalajara, and I try not to as much as I can, but Mexico City is absolute chaos. And like Amanda mentioned, there's days where you're allowed to have your car out, there's days when you're not. There's certain hours you can be driving, certain hours you're not. And if you are caught driving outside of the hours that you're allowed to based on your plates, you can get your car impounded. It's a huge fine, and it's a mess. That's one of the reasons we haven't visited yet, because we were going to drive there and we realized it was very complicated to do. And yeah, I know that sounds like a first world problem, but we had a lot going on, and we're like, maybe we should fly there, and when we have more time to actually spend and enjoy and whatever, and we kind of put that trip off.
You might want to be aware of this. It's a city of 22 million people. So if you don't want to deal with people, Mexico City is probably not for you. Yeah. Okay. So next is Cancun, which is also kind of a hotspot for Americans, Canadians, some European expats. I'm going to be completely honest. I hated Cancun personally, right? But you might like it. And again, I'm from Miami. Cancun just reminded me of Miami, but with a bunch of hotels next to the water, but in Mexico. Now, you are close to like Chichen Itza and all that stuff, so that might be interesting.
Chicken pizza?
No.
I'm just kidding.
Now we're really going to get trolled. Don't. You are close to Chichen Itza, you're close to Tulum, you're close to Playa. So it might be a place to consider. The airport is also actually something to consider in Cancun. It's got constant international flights. A lot of
flights, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're looking, I mean, Mexico City is definitely a great place if you're looking to have international access to Europe and every city basically in the U.S. and Asia and Central and South America.
In the world
and Cancun, same kind of thing. There's a lot of flights. They have nonstop flights to, I believe, the Dominican Republic, obviously Miami, Panama City, Panama for sure. Although you can fly there from Guadalajara now as well. But Cancun's got a lot of international flights because of all the tourism.
All the tourism. So if that's important to you, that's something to consider. Now, there's also a bunch of places that we're not going to get a chance
What do you
to
like
talk
about
on this
Cancun?
video. What do I like about Cancun?
If anything, you don't seem to be a huge fan.
I didn't like anything about Cancun.
I think Cancun itself is way too touristy. Playa del Carmen, like I would consider living there maybe if I got tired of the city and really wanted more of a beach vibe. But Cancun, it's like big city, mostly tourism. I mean, I'm sure there's expats that live there.
There's tons of expats there.
But
yeah.
it wasn't really our vibe. We've been there many times.
Yeah. Now, there's a bunch of other places that did not make it to this list. We know a lot of people have been asking us about Mérida, which is a hotspot right now. There's a lot of videos on Mérida. Some places some people like the Cabos of the world. Actually, you spent
I lived in Cabo, for about a year and a half. Cabo is beautiful. It's got the same pros and cons of a lot of beach towns. You've got the heat, definitely high electricity bills because you're running AC 24/7 if you want to be comfortable. But the beach is amazing, very, very beautiful beaches. A lot of other places in Baja, though, are nicer than Cabo itself. Like I would check out Todos Santos. There's some really nice beaches if you go a little bit more up the coast. San Jose del Cabo, which is part of Los Cabos, but not in Cabo, the town where a lot of tourists go. It's more up north, closer towards the airport. That's a little bit more laid back, a little bit more like colonial town, mellower vibe, not so much, crazy partying, nightlife, all that. You can tell, we like to be in bed by about 9 o'clock every night. We're not super big on the nightlife thing. I had my time with that in LA.
And I'm from Miami.
And she's from Miami. We've calmed down a lot.
We've calmed down.
But Cabo's, not necessarily Cabo itself, but the Baja Peninsula for sure has a lot of beautiful, beautiful, beautiful areas. It's about traveling and exploring and really just seeing what fits your vibe. This is just kind of a little bit of a summary of some of the places we've been to, other places that we've heard of. Here's kind of the idea. Here's what's going on there. Here's some pros and cons. That's just what we wanted to give you a little.
And then we'll top it off with Mérida, because those of you who've been asking a lot about safety and things like that, you will be interested to know that Mérida is actually one of the safest places in Latin America. It has a tiene fama. How do I say that in English? It has a reputation for being one of the safest places in Latin America, if that's something that you're interested in or if that's something that really concerns you. It's on the Yucatan, so it's hot. In Mérida, you will be running that AC all the time as well. In Mérida, you'll just like clock in those wall units and they'll be on all the time, but there's lots of expats there. There's lots of people who are absolutely loving it. It's smaller than the Cancuns and the Playa del Carmen's, and it's known for being pretty safe for those of you who are concerned about that. All right, guys, so that is our video on all the expat hotspots. There's probably some that we missed, so if there's any that you want us to talk about, like more off the beaten path, like Puerto Escondido, then please let us know
And we'll go there and we'll check it out for you.
in the comments below, and we'll go there and we'll check it out for you. If you like this video, go ahead and subscribe, give it a thumbs up. It helps us with the algorithm gods, and we are trying to get this in front of 1 million expats or people who are interested in being entrepreneurial expats. We need your help to do that. And when you give us a like and you give us a comment and you subscribe and you share, you help us with that mission. And once again, you can find all the resources from moving to Mexico to running an online business below. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.